Hey guys, just a vlog style update this time, and it's going to be about my Delta build, so if that doesn't interest you at all, then go spend your time on something more interesting, and I will also I'll be marking up the timeline with what I'm covering at each point, so feel free to skip around as well. But basically, last night I was rebuilding the frame, and I had it actually down on the floor, which was kind of an unusual view, so I decided to take the chance to just kind of go over sort of the frame side and electronic side of what I'm doing, because right now I am working to set myself up for a future upgrade path, starting with 48 volts and then all-wheel drive, so adding 3 more steppers at the top, and finally tool changing. I have made the printer about 17 centimeters taller because I'm anticipating that when I want to add a tool rack, it'll be up here because that's where there's space to put something, and so the printer has definitely gotten fairly taller, but that's all right. I'll be losing some of that space. So yeah, that's what's in store. This is not a how-to, but just what I've done. I think there could be material here of interest to those who are looking at building a Delta, but I'm not going to tell you how to build your own. Yeah, so let's go. So here is the tower that provides sound dampening. This is the wooden base. This is made out of a chunk of wood or plywood from a speaker cabinet, from an organ speaker actually. Very firm stuff, set up on little adjustable feet. So these posts are through bolts. We've got these blue posts, and here is how the stack looks. I cast these bushings out of just silicon caulk, and so that mounts through these mounts. These holes are much larger than the through bolts, so there's no hard surface contact, and then these dishes interface with those pads. I've got this on the floor because I am tightening up the frame. Gotta say, if you want to build a console, I really can't recommend these metal RobotDigg vertexes enough. This is the second time I have put this printer together with them. This time I didn't have to assemble it. I reassembled the top and bottom triangles, which I did the first time by so the bottom ones are 60 millimeters, and these are 20 millimeters tall. So what I did was I just stacked up all three side extrusions, 1, 2, 3, because this is, if you can't tell, this is 2. Stacked up 1, 2, 3 each side, and put together the bottom triangle, and then I popped out those middle ones, and I laid this out on top of the bottom one and pegged it together with the vertical extrusions, with it sitting here, so that way I knew for a fact, pretty much, the top and the bottom would match up exactly side. So if I was just a little bit off, it wouldn't matter. I mean, it would matter, but it wouldn't throw off the squareness. Yeah, so now beyond that, I have gone to 850 millimeter uprights. These are 300 millimeter. Without cable bracing, this would be too tall, for sure, on 2020s. If I didn't already have these corners, I would probably do the 2040 version that has the thicker uprights, but with the cable bracing, it's fine. So 555 millimeter 9C rails, or 9mm rails with 9C carriages. You can see I've got the the spreaders and anchors for the cable bracing, but I don't have the cables on because I still have to do all the wiring, and the cables get in the way. Beyond that, you can see right here, this is my constant force spring retraction. I needed this to put some lift on the flying LGX when I was running the LGX as my flying extruder, just because it was heavy enough to offset or to pull everything down when it was powered off. Right now that is kind of waiting dormant. I haven't taken it off. Quite frankly, I think it looks neat. But so this is, I designed this cam profile to progressive extension would extend the spring less and less. So it's mounted on some 5mm rods that I salvaged from an inkjet printer, actually. For idlers, so the RobotDigg corners come with an idler set up here where there's like a flange bearing, and then there's this machined cylinder that goes across, and it has flanges for a 6mm belt. But they are, the bearings weren't the best quality. Mainly they were smooth, and belt running on a smooth idler is, in my opinion, never going to be as good as running on a toothed idler. So I got different bearings that had 5mm inner diameters but still fit these sockets, and built my own idlers out of 5mm rod, lock collar, good quality 16-tooth pulley, and then a couple of printed spacers. Yeah, and so down here you can see the Duet 3 board ready to go. I've got all my salvaged stuff to rebuild my PSU with my PSU pair into a PSU. I mean, once you're at 3, it's a cluster, right? A PSU cluster. And I've decided that I want to, as long as I'm doing it anyway, I want to rewire it or redo the connections with these spade terminals. What I had in there are like the shoelace ends that are just tightened under the screw terminals. I've never had a problem with that, but the Duet came with spade terminals for these. Once I saw that, just, why not? Seems like the right idea. So my plan is what I'm adding here, because I don't think I mentioned, is a 48 volt power supply, 350 watt. Meanwhile, right now, I've been running it on 24 volts, but the Duet 3 can take 48. Running it on 48 gets a little bit tricky for running things that are meant for lesser voltages, because unlike some boards, so the Duet has V in, and then these other two this is for power supply for the bed specifically. So I got a 12 volt bed, so that'll be easy, 12 volts in and 12 volts out to the bed, and then I can set jumpers or supply external 12 volts for my fans, which are also 12 volts. But then for the hot end, which is my hot end is 24 volts. So these are the hot end connections, and so these would be 48 volts if I was supplying 48 volts. But the way the Duet sets these up is that it's not the high side that is switched with the ground. So you can technically supply any voltage you want instead of using the high pin, and then hook up use the low pin, and that will, the board won't know any different. It'll still be running that heater on PWM. So that's kind of the one wrinkle, and my plan is to set that up, that slight inconvenience, to set that up now, and and then do my commissioning initial setup, because I've never run this board on 24 volts, but set up the PSU and all the wiring so that 48 volts will be here ready to go, and it'll just be a matter of when I'm ready to go to 48 volts, it'll just be a matter of disconnect 24 and make that safe and not floating around exposed, and then put 48 volts in its place, and hopefully, I mean, who am I kidding? I'm still going to, disconnect everything to start with and very carefully ease back in. But at least, everything will be in place. I won't have to go through the additional trouble of, setting up the PSU later or running more wiring. I can get it all done now. So that is where we're at. Oh, and as you can see, there's conspicuous absence of the motion system, but that's not changing at all. That is just in a cupboard awaiting its return. Doop, 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 doop. Simple, yet satisfying.